There is a quiet season in human life that few talk about. It usually arrives slowly, almost shyly, weaving itself into the rhythm of an older person's days. And unless someone is paying close attention, the signs often pass unnoticed. But Sam, watching from the outside, often saw the same gentle patterns appear in elders nearing the final chapter of life, not as warnings, not as predictions, but as a natural softening of the heart and spirit. These moments weren't frightening. In truth, they held a kind of calm beauty, the kind that invites families to lean closer, love deeper, and listen with more patience than ever before. People imagine that aging is a dramatic descent, but Sam often observed the opposite. It's quieter, almost like a candle turning down its flame, not because it's failing, but because the room itself is getting softer. And in that softening, small emotional shifts begin to appear, shifts that can guide loved ones toward deeper understanding, if they know how to recognize them. The first shift is emotional softening. People who once carried strong opinions begin to let them go. Conversations that once sparked tension fade into gentle nods or reflective silence. A grandmother who used to argue about the smallest details now listens with a half smile, watching the light move across the room. A retired teacher who once corrected every misused word now chooses stillness instead of debate. It isn't disengagement, it's a kind of inward turning, as if their spirit is choosing to rest from long-carried battles. Sam noticed that this softening isn't about surrender, it's about conserving emotional energy. Older adults often begin to drift toward memories, toward reflection, toward forgiveness that doesn't need to be spoken out loud. They may sit longer by the window, they may let others take the lead in conversations. And the most loving response, Sam found, is simply to join them in the quiet. Ask about old memories. Let silence sit without fear. In this early softening, tenderness often speaks louder than words. The second shift is appetite changing, not out of illness or obligation, but as a natural turning toward simplicity. Favorite foods become too heavy. Long dinners become tiring. The joy of eating shifts into the joy of sipping tea, tasting fruit, or enjoying a warm bowl of something light. Sam often saw elders gravitate toward comfort rather than indulgence, choosing small bites and warm drinks over full plates. Families often rush to encourage more eating, worrying that something is wrong. But Sam observed that, for many older adults, the body simply asks for gentleness, not abundance. Offering small portions, warm soups, or simple favorites allows the moment to stay joyful instead of stressful. Sharing a meal becomes less about nourishment and more about presence. The simple act of sitting together, even if only a few bites are taken. The third shift is slower movement and longer rest, not because of weakness alone, but because the pace of life begins to change. A walk that was once a daily ritual becomes an occasional choice. Mornings stretch into long, peaceful hours. The body leans toward rest, as if it is conserving energy for something quieter, something inward. Sam watched elders pause before rising from a chair, not out of fear, but out of thoughtfulness. They begin to choose comfort over activity, familiar chairs over long outings, quiet afternoons over busy schedules. It is a rhythm that is neither sad nor surprising. It is simply nature guiding the body towards stillness. The best thing loved ones can offer is patience and gentle assistance, a hand to hold, a steady arm, a willingness to walk slower or sit longer. These small offerings honor the pace of someone who is learning to move through the world differently. The fourth shift is a blend of clarity and quiet confusion. There are days when an elder becomes unexpectedly sharp, sharing vivid memories or offering insights that feel almost like gifts. And then, without warning, they may drift into a softer mental space, mixing timelines, repeating questions, or blending dreams with waking life. Sam noticed that this mixture often confused families who were unsure whether to correct or comfort. But Sam learned through observation that correction rarely brings peace. What elders need is gentle companionship, a nod, a warm response, a familiar song. Confusion, when it appears in late life, is rarely a sign of distress. Often, it is simply the mind loosening its grip on strict chronology, allowing old memories to resurface and wander. When loved ones respond with patience, the elder's world feels safe, not threatened. And safety is often the difference between fear and peace. The fifth shift is spiritual openness, not necessarily religious, though it can be, but deeply human. Many older adults begin to speak of dreams that feel unmistakably real, or describe conversations with loved ones who passed long ago. They may reflect more on the meaning of their lives, the mistakes they've made, the love they gave, or the moments they wish they could relive. They may stare a little longer at the sky, or pause before answering simple questions, as if listening to something beyond the noise of the present moment. Sam noticed that families often react with worry, unsure what these moments mean. But for many elders, this openness is a gentle integration of past and present, a way of making peace. It is not a sign of decline, but of reconciliation. The right response is simple. Listen. Let them share. Sit quietly beside them. Sometimes the most sacred conversations are the ones where no explanation is needed. And then there are the moments that carry stories. Stories that shape the way loved ones remember this final season. Sam once narrated the story of a husband and wife married for decades. He was a quiet man who had spent his life keeping his emotions tucked neatly inside. But in his late years, the softening began. He held her hand more. He thanked her for small things. He watched her move about the kitchen with a kind of reverence. On his final weeks, the quiet confusion came. Yet when she spoke, he always looked directly toward her voice, as if recognizing a familiar melody. Their last nights together were spent in shared silence, a silence thick with memory, not sorrow. When he finally rested, she placed her head on his chest and whispered, "Thank you for walking with me all this time." It was not a goodbye. It was a continuation of their shared rhythm. There was also the story of a mother and her adult son. She had always been practical, efficient, and a little stern. But as the softening came, she became gentler, asking him about his day with genuine curiosity. On afternoons when her energy waned, she would simply sit beside him, listening to him talk about ordinary things, work, errands, small frustrations. One evening, during a moment of clear thought, she looked at him and said, "You turned out well." It was simple, almost abrupt, but it was everything he had waited his whole life to hear. In the final weeks, the spiritual openness appeared. She dreamt of her own mother, spoke softly into the air, and smiled at memories only she could see. Her son didn't correct her. He just held her hand, and in that hand-holding, he found the closure he didn't know he needed. Sam often reflected that these quiet shifts, softening, simplifying, slowing, drifting, opening, are not signs of giving up. They are signs of returning home to oneself. They remind families that love in the final chapter is not about fixing, persuading, or holding on too tightly. It is about showing up, sitting near, listening, letting the moments unfold without rushing them. In the end, Sam often believed that the greatest gift anyone can offer an aging loved one is presence. A hand on the shoulder, a warm voice, a patient heart, because as the world grows quieter for them, your presence becomes the anchor they return to again and again. And if someone is noticing these shifts right now in a parent, grandparent, spouse, or friend, Sam would remind them of one thing. This season is not about loss. It is about completion. It is a time to say what has been left unsaid, to offer the gentleness you always meant to give, and to honor the life that is still unfolding before your eyes. So, if this message reaches someone who is walking that journey with an elder they love, let it be a guide toward deeper awareness, toward patience, toward connection, and toward gratitude for every quiet, meaningful moment shared along the way.